Alright, in this video we are going to look at setting up the event handlers to enable dragging and dropping of an element. Now, a small disclaimer, in this particular video you'll see that the element that we're moving doesn't actually follow the pointer exactly like we want to. But we'll cover that in a different video because there's some complexities that we want to discuss. We're just going to focus on the event handlers to enable drag and drop operations in this video. So I've went ahead and coded a whole bunch of this stuff ahead of time. I'm just going to quickly walk through it and then demonstrate how this stuff works. So the first thing that we did was just create the handlers that we are going to be using during our event management. So we're going to have a mouse down, a mouse up, and a mouse move, so that I want to perform certain actions when I put the mouse down. I want to move the object when I perform the mouse move, and I want to clean up some resources that are instantiated on the mouse up. So on the mouse down, I want to make sure that we only perform the drag and drop operation if the target is actually correct. So we have a div here that has a class called movable. When we look at our DOM, we'll see that there's our container. So if I click on a space and I perform mouse actions in empty space, it doesn't actually do anything. The reason for is because the target is incorrect. So if you look at the mouse down operation here, you'll see that we actually doing a check on the target using a function called matches. And what matches allows us to do is to use a query selector to say, does this particular target element conform to this query selector? Now there's a number of ways that you could have done this. You could have checked whether the target was equal to some element, or you could have checked that it has a data dash attribute of a certain sort. This is just a different way of dealing with it, so you don't have to add any additional markup to the HTML to do the check. This is just fine the way that it is. So I'm just going to put a breakpoint on here, and then we can just click on this div, and you can see that the target is the movable item. And if we say event.target.matches down here, and we'll for argument's sake say it's a div, you'll see that it's true. If I change this to something ridiculous like h2, you'll see that it says no, it's false. So because this target has a class of movable, it will actually allow us to perform the next operation. So step one for us is that we want to cache the target element, which is this div here, to a field on the class because we're going to be using it again here on the mouse up and the mouse move. So we cache it, and then the next thing that we do is we register the mouse move event and the mouse up event. And in this case we are registering this on the document level, and it's only the mouse move and the mouse up that we're registering on the document level. And this is to prevent odd behavior when your mouse moves outside of the container that contains the element that you're moving. It causes all kinds of havoc with the element losing focus, and it just is not a scenario you want to be in. So you can go and play with it by setting or localizing this to your container and then moving your mouse outside of the container to see what happens. But just out of experience, I've found that put the mouse move and the mouse up on the document level, and life will be much simpler from there on forward. So let's just quickly run this through. When I click on this item and I move it, you can now see that it's kind of tracking with my pointer. Now, as I said, we'll deal with why it's a little bit off of the pointer in a different video, but you can also see at the bottom that it's logging out my translation coordinates as I move the mouse around, right? Now, it's important to note that the top left-hand corner of this is 0, 0, But when I move my pointer there, you'll see that it's actually not giving me 0, 0. The values are off, and this is one of the reasons why this thing is not tracking the pointer correctly. And in the next video, we'll see how we can solve that. Having said that, another very important point to note is that on the mouse up, we are cleaning up our operations. So I only want those events to be live. I only want to cache that element during the actual drag and drop operation. I don't want the mouse move to be live when I'm not actually performing the drag and drop operation, because then I got to contain all kinds of conditional logic in the move to say, ooh, well, am I actually performing the right operation? In this case, you can see I'm only performing the move when I have my mouse down. The block is no longer following the pointer. Why? Because on the mouse up, I remove those event listeners, so they are no longer active, right? And then on the mouse move itself, you can set the transform of the element using CSS. And in one of the previous videos, we had a look at that when we set the transition here to transform 100px 100px, right? So no, that's transform translate 100px 100px. But you can also set that via JavaScript. And so if you look at the element here, you'll see that it has now got the style property on it. And as I move it, that value is changing. So in JavaScript, we can set those things. And here we are setting the styles transform property to translate X, translate Y. Now, we can do all kinds of stuff in here, like on the style, you can set the background this way. You can set any CSS property this way. And then lastly, we just log that out here so that we can see that we have set it. So let's just summarize this very quickly. Set up your event handlers because you're going to be needing them later on. So these are just the handles to the functions that we want. But we only register the event on the mouse down. On the mouse down, we check whether or not it is down on the correct target. If it is the correct target, and only if it is the correct target, do we cache that target as an element so that we can use it later on in our mouse up and mouse move functions. We also then register on a document level the events for the mouse move and mouse up. And then when we release the mouse, we want to do our cleanup operation by setting the element that we cache to null, which is important. We don't want memory leaks. And then we also want to remove the event listeners for the mouse move and mouse up. Then on the mouse move, we can set any CSS style property on the style object of the element. In this case, we're setting the transform and we are translating it to the current X and current Y position. And we're just doing a console log. In the next video, we'll clean this up so that the tracking of the div is on the mouse coordinates exactly.